Welcome to The Bureau, the official podcast of the International UFO Bureau. Founded in 1957 and reimagined for today, we're fusing decades of discovery with next-gen tech to uncover the truth about unidentified anomalous phenomena. Join Executive Director Terry Keel, CEO Mindy Totfest, and Director of Research Melissa Madrigal. 3 generations, 1 mission: to investigate the unknown and bring the truth into focus. This is The Bureau.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The
Hey.
Bureau. This is where 3 generations of women come together and investigate the truth behind unidentified anomalous phenomena. I'm Mindy Totbest, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Terry Lynn Kill and Melissa Madrigal. How are you, ladies?
Doing
Well,
good.
excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
great. We have a
we've got
great show.
Yes, we have another great guest, and this is actually going to be her very first time coming and speaking publicly. So
Yeah.
I'm so excited to bring her to the forefront and introduce the public to her because she is a powerhouse once again of the people that have joined the Bureau. So, Terry, do you mind telling us a little bit about her background?
Sure. Well, her name is Leeza Franks, and she's a retired police sergeant with 27 years of service in a Maryland agency there, where she worked undercover and investigated violent crimes and specialized in interviewing and trauma-informed response. And she has a MA in criminal justice and extensive training in critical incident and crisis intervention. She brings unique skills to the Bureau, the International UFO Bureau, and she contributes to the First Responder Initiative and serves as a PRO, which is our Phenomenon Response Officers. And let's see, she's also extensive training in critical incidents and crisis intervention, and she brings unique skills. And I'm reading that a second time, I think. Leeza is passionate about evidence-based UFO investigations, experiencer support, and connecting historical and modern anomalous phenomenon through research into consciousness, ancient civilizations, and the unexplained. And we couldn't be more proud to have her on board. She is just doing an excellent job here. So welcome, Leeza.
Thank you very
Lisa,
much.
thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be here. Thanks a lot, guys.
Can
Yes,
you
first
start?
podcast.
sure.
Very first one. Can you start by sharing a little bit about your professional background as a police detective and how that experience shaped your approach to UAP investigations?
Sure, yeah. I joined an agency outside of Baltimore back in 1995. I became a detective after being a regular street officer for a few years. I worked undercover for many years. I bought drugs off the street, guns off the street. Um,
Wow.
I did a number of very unusual things in that job. It's kind of like an acting job when you're undercover. So I found
Very
that really
cool.
interesting. I loved it at the time. Later, I went into criminal investigations where I did homicide investigations, violent crimes investigations, violent assaults, abductions, child abuse, and all these terrible things, all that stuff.
Wow.
I
That's
think what it
amazing, Leeza.
it was a lot. It was interesting. I definitely did not want a job where I sat behind a desk. I wanted something a little more dynamic, a little more interesting. I wanted something different every day. So I guess
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
for
You
sure.
got
We're in the
into the thick of it.
Yeah, you took
Yeah.
the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say she was in the thick of the soup there. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
So
I know
proud of
that
you.
whenever you were writing to us about kind of your background and the things you had done, you had even had to pose as a prostitute and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
a funny story
I
about
know.
that. If you want to hear a funny story about that,
Sure.
Let's hear
um,
it.
well, okay. So there were a number of complaints about this particular area in the county that I worked, and so we set up a sting operation where female officers would pose as prostitutes, and the gentleman callers would be they have to have a certain terminology that they use as far as what they would pay for something. And when that certain terminology was heard on the wire that I was wearing, then I would tell the gentleman to meet me down the street, and I would meet him there for, the transaction. So we're keeping things clean here for the audience,
Yeah.
guys.
Yes, thank
So,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, um, he told me what he was interested in, and I said, well, that would be, $30, which was the going rate at the time in that
Oh my
area.
goodness.
And he opened up his wallet and he pulled out a 5 and 4 ones, and he said, "This is all I have is $9." And because I was working this, I couldn't turn him down. Now, if I was
Ah,
really working there, I probably would have turned him down. But because I was in this role as a police officer, I had to accept his offer of $9 for this act and
Oh
tell him
dear.
down the street. Yeah. So
Mhm.
when I met him down the street and they did a search incident to arrest of his trunk, he had $9,000 cash in his trunk. I was gonna spend
Oh my
me
goodness.
$9. I said, "Gee, couldn't you do better than that?
Wow.
Jeez."
Wow.
So it was crazy. It was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gosh, thank you for serving the country like that. Though.
Oh,
That's crazy. That is
you're welcome,
crazy.
man.
yeah. So
So
then, coming from such an evidence-based, focused career, I mean, you're out there literally dealing with the worst of the worst and getting evidence to prove the case and bring them to trial. What first sparked your interest in the UFO phenomena and led you deeper into the UFO field?
Well, first of all, I learned a lot there that would help me with IUFOB that I'm putting to good use now. I mean, I had almost 30 years
Yeah.
of interview and interrogation
wow.
techniques I learned. One thing about that job is I learned how to speak to any kind of person,
Yeah.
and meet them on their level, and
Mhm.
speak to them, genuinely on any
Mhm.
level. So that really helped, I feel. The
What a great
interviewing,
gift, you know?
being able to interview people, well, I think learning that there and learning those
Yes.
techniques can be useful in any situation, really, talking to
Yeah.
people. But certainly in IUFOB, where you're dealing with people who've had some different experiences, that they may
Yes.
be having trouble with. It also
Trauma.
gave me the ability to try to detect deception. You can detect deception a lot of different ways. So I did learn a lot of that stuff too. So, but how I got started in all this, well, geez, I think Sam Sheridan last week mentioned watching In Search of as a kid. I
Oh,
love that
yeah.
show, of course.
Yeah.
Unsolved Mysteries came later, another great show. But
Yeah.
back then, I'm a Gen Xer, so back then there
Yay!
weren't,
Oh!
yay. But they weren't a ton of shows back then. There weren't a ton of shows that dealt with
Right.
anomalous
Right.
topics. And I would go to the library. I was a big reader. I'm still an avid reader. And
Good.
look for books about the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot and UFOs. And they
Yep.
were few and far between. So
Yes.
now they're not, but back then they were.
Mhm.
Um, so I've just been interested in that stuff my whole life. I did have to put that on the back burner though for this evidence-based career, and at that time too, it was being laughed at in the media, and people didn't believe anything. So I said, well, maybe there's no
Right.
there. Maybe there's
Right.
nothing. So I just kind of said, well, put that back here. I did my career. But then, like everybody, when that 2017 New York Times article came out that revealed that the United States government was actually, after all their denials, actually were investigating UFOs, I said, "Oh my,
Yep.
let me get
Yeah.
back on this topic." And I dove in head first, and I have not came back up yet. So,
Well,
Amen.
did you worry that it might have damaged your reputation if you would have been involved prior to that?
Mm.
well, I know one thing. At work, they did not want us on social media for many reasons. They knew that officers are judged by many different standards, and you really have to be careful. Probably they would not have appreciated it. I'll say that.
I get you.
Yeah.
Well, and I imagine with social media, it would put your family in danger, especially if you were
Yeah,
doing undercover stuff and
yeah.
someone recognized you. So I understand
And
that
and
point of
later,
view.
Mindy, I wanted to just to tell you this part. Later, when I was not undercover any longer, but just as a regular basic sergeant, a supervisor, they gave us a big presentation, and they said, "What you say on social media or what you're interested in on social media can be judged, when you're on the stand in court."
Sure.
Ah,
A defense attorney can really twist things and
Oh
really
yeah.
make you look a certain way if they want to, to discredit your testimony, to discredit what you've written in your reports to free their client. So you have to be really careful with everything. And I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore. I'm so
Oh
glad
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
free to enjoy the topics that I want to enjoy, research and explore, be a member of this wonderful organization that I'm thrilled to be a part of. And
Thank you.
We're
so
happy to
so
have you.
thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thank you for yes, thank you
absolutely.
for taking me.
Mhm.
Well,
So
yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. So, as a first responder, those reports have always carried a very special weight in UFO fields and ufology. From your perspective, with all your knowledge, what makes these reports so significant?
Mm. Well, I know that first responders are trained to be really good observers. So, EMS, fire, police, you have to pay attention to your surroundings and you have to be able to document later what you're seeing now. You have
Yeah,
to, um, a badly written report or bad documentation can put an innocent person in jail. It can make
right.
put a dangerous person back on the street. So,
Hmm.
with first responder reports, integrity is everything. If
Yes,
you lie, you'll lose your livelihood. In my department, they didn't play around with that. If an officer was caught telling a lie in a report or on the stand, you're gone. They would not allow you to work there. The very nature of the job, too, as a first responder, you have such a background check and long extended background investigations that you have to undergo. That's why they do that,
Absolutely.
to make sure they get the best of the best as far as integrity and honesty, and that certainly is paramount.
So if a first responder is speaking out, then there is something to it. If they say they saw a light in the sky, because I mean, your first go to is not going to be this has to be a UFO. Typically,
Correct.
those in law enforcement are going to try and find the source of whatever they're seeing and find a prosaic explanation prior to jumping to straight paranormal or something outside of
Absolutely.
the norm.
A scientific approach, 100%. Yes. Yes.
hmm
Yeah.
absolutely.
Since you're trained in trauma informed interviewing, does that guide your approach to ensuring that experiencers feel safe and understood when they're sharing their encounters?
Oh, absolutely. I was on the critical incident stress management team, which dealt with police officers experiencing trauma on the job. So it's kind of like a counseling position where you would meet with fellow officers, peer to peer, when a situation happened that was really disturbing. I was also, I had critical incident training, the crisis intervention team. That was just for citizens. So we had two separate parts there. So I've had double the training as far as that goes.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but I think it's important to approach each person as an individual. Everybody's different, and you guys know that people handle trauma differently. They handle stress differently. Some people you can't phase them, and it's all
Right.
happening on the inside.
Hmm.
Some people break down and become hysterical. Some people completely shut down and they don't respond to you. So there are lots of different mechanisms for that, and the best way to approach that is individually. Um, give them your individual attention. Everybody's different, so you have to be able to develop a rapport with anyone. You have to be a calming presence. You have
Yes.
to reassure them
Yes.
that they're safe.
Yeah.
And, I would reassure them that they are safe and that we are working on their case because, we would have been doing that. Be patient with individuals. Let them take their time to tell their story. Uh,
Yeah.
it's important that you give them time to speak and let them go at their own pace, but most
Absolutely.
importantly, just be there and be an empathetic listener.
I
Right.
will tell you that it takes a special person to be able to sit in that position over and over and over again, and continue to still face that every single day, choosing it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not a lot of people can carry that.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. I just I'm just blown away at all the training that you have had. And it is so necessary in this type of a situation because you're not
Absolutely.
just pro, but you're also working with Connect. And so,
Yeah.
you're the perfect person for this. I wish we could get a lot of people just like you.
Yeah.
Those that
They're
are
out there.
listening,
They are
give
out
us a
there.
call.
They are out there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I think that one of the important factors that you bring to the table is, again, being able to assess the situation, to walk
Mhm.
someone through an interview, to
Yeah,
detect any lies or even
yeah,
any signs of mental illness. Because I know
Yeah.
in my course of investigations, I've had experiencers that presented with symptoms of mental illness,
yeah,
and that doesn't mean that they cannot be an experiencer, but it
right.
sure complicates it. um, Being able to weed through all of that and also remaining a sympathetic ear to really give each individual what they need. If it is a true abduction, a true contact, continuing contact situation, to be able to counsel them through that and kind of lead them to healing on that side and not feeding into delusions that others may be having. So,
Yes.
how do you kind of determine where people lie? I know you said you had some techniques that you use to determine if someone's lying or if um, it may not be a real event.
Yeah.
Could you give us some examples? I know one of them that we've been taught is like reverse, having them recount the situation in reverse,
Right.
uh, and that's
Yep.
hard to keep up with. Are there other techniques? And I know you don't want to necessarily go into every aspect of it, but uh, I'd like to know.
Well, we can't reveal all our secrets, but
That's
I
right.
can tell you, like a simple thing, like, and you ladies probably all do it when you're working on your cases, is have a person recount their story from a different time in the event. So
Yes.
if a person is lying, usually they know the lie from beginning to end. But if you tell them to start at a different point in their story, they may tell it differently or
Right.
not tell it accurately.
Right.
Um, have them tell their story over and over again by asking the question in a different way.
Mhm.
And if the story stays consistent, then I think you can bet your money on credibility. I've dealt with
Mhm.
also, Mindy, a lot of mental illness in my career.
Right.
Um, and you get to where you can kind of see that, I think, a little bit.
Mhm. Mhm.
And lead them to get the help that they should have. If they hopefully will accept the help, you can point them in the right direction. So yeah.
Right. Well, I know me coming from a nursing career, that was always a big thing for me is I
Right.
don't want to feed into delusions. I want to
Right.
get to the bottom of this phenomena and I want to be able to understand different aspects that people are experiencing within it. But you can't feed into those that
No.
might be having delusions.
Right.
And it's something that people don't really like to speak about, but it is something we come across and it is something that we always kind of have in the back of our mind to make sure that we're getting people the proper help that they need.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's two very different things that we can do for them depending on kind of our assessment of it. But the first thing is just being that sympathetic ear, listening um, and not drawing any conclusions at the forefront. Let someone talk for themselves. I know I had one case, and this lady has ended up becoming a very good friend of mine. I just adore her, and her story sounded absolutely bonkers. And she told me, "Look, I had just gotten out of the mental institution, but while I was there, there was actually a light orb that came in through the window, and three other patients saw it. And I'm telling you, there's three mental patients sitting here looking at this light orb, and she had had a major abduction encounter.
Oof.
It
This is why
really
it's
was
so important
incredible.
to see the
Mm.
difference between and having professionals like this to be able to see the difference between something that's real and somebody that's going through
Yeah.
severe psychosis.
Yes.
Well, and someone like her, where it's a combination of both. I mean, she said, I was seeing things at the time, but other people saw this. And I guess there was a police report. She had gone missing in the woods and they had been out all night searching for her. And
Wow.
I mean, there were things, there was evidence to back up everything she was saying. And she was very forthcoming with, hey, I've had my mental problems, but this is separate. This happened. And these are the witnesses you can speak to, and everything backed it up. So it can get kind of murky there, but I always
interesting there,
appreciate
though,
a forthcoming witness that says, look, this is kind of what I'm dealing with, but this is also true.
and what's interesting there with that case, I picked up one, is that she knows herself. She knows she suffers
Right.
from an issue, and she could
Right.
tell the difference. She knew the difference, and she
Right.
told you the
Absolutely.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, she's one of my favorite people. We may need to see about bringing her on, because she's just a
Great.
hoot. And she had like, she ended up in the news because she met her husband at a drive-through, and they ended up having a whole wedding and everything there. And then and she married like some high-ranking military official or
Oh
something.
my goodness.
She's a hoot, and I just love her. And before I mention her name, I'll get her permission, but maybe we
Yeah.
can have her on the show
Yeah.
later, and she could share all her side of things, and exactly what she went through at that time, because it's fascinating. So Leeza, let me back up here.
Okay.
With focused reporting efforts such as the Bureau's First Responder Initiative, where we intake reports directly from the first responders and ensure that the reports are handled by fellow first responders. What are your thoughts on how this approach can change the way UFO cases are investigated, and especially when dealing with mass sighting events?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think that's great, because first responders dealing with other first responders is like military guys dealing with other military guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They know the same
Team.
lingo. They
It's a
know
team.
They
Yeah.
know the terms. They know the terminology. They've had a lot of the same training, maybe a lot of the same experiences, so they can really relate to each other. It's relatability, I think, that's most important there.
Right.
Um, uh, First responders. Let's say you mentioned mass sighting event. So, well, it depends on the mass sighting. So you can have a mass sighting that consists of a neighborhood with 4 or 5 different families, 4 or 5 different homes who see something. You could have a mass sighting that is several cities, multiple jurisdictions, several
Right.
states, multiple state agencies, multiple small municipality. It could get to be a big conundrum,
Yeah.
but first responders make good witnesses, and they're going to be part of your witness pool too in a situation like
Right.
that. So those
Mhm.
credible reports there, let's compare those to the general public. Does everything kind of line up? Maybe, maybe not. It should, more or less, but again, everybody's an individual. So you have to separate people immediately, because once they start sharing stories, they're no longer pure stories. They're going to be corrupted. Um, that's sometimes really hard to do in a large group of people. I've dealt with this because a mass UFO sighting event is akin to any mass event of any kind.
Yeah.
Um, uh, a car accident that's witnessed by multiple people, anything where multiple people are witnesses to something. So it's all kind of handled the same. Separate your witnesses, interview them separately, get their stories down, and then document. I can't say that enough. If you document things, the sooner you do it, the more accurate it's going to be. So you get that on paper.
Absolutely.
Have them write their own story out. Have them write their own narrative at a scene. That's what we would always do, and I think that's the best way to do things sometimes. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
know that like during back in the 1965 flap here in Oklahoma
Mm.
City, it was right around the central US. Uh, Hayden Hughes, that started the International UFO Bureau back then, he actually had gotten a call from one of his police friends, and they were like, oh, let's go out and watch, because there were all these sightings being reported. And they actually went out and saw a UFO. So that police officer then became part of the story and was able to share what he saw from that perspective. Uh, then we think of things like the Stephenville lights or the Phoenix lights,
Phoenix Lights.
where there were these mass sighting events and the calls are flooding into the police department. That's part of what we're wanting to do with the first responders initiative, is being able to inform police departments when they have something like this, or even something like what happened out in Vegas. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen the police video? I know I'm springing this on you. I'm sorry. But have you seen the video from the officers, and what were your thoughts on that?
If you're talking about the body cam footage of the
Yes.
object, okay, and then the
Well, the
reports
actual
now,
entities that were there in the backyard of that family.
Yeah.
I saw just what the young man released. I haven't seen any. I know that okay, let me back it up. So initially I thought this might be a hoax, but I have found things out recently that I don't think it was a hoax at all. I think that
No.
that may have been legit. And the government came in and put a camera up immediately. I don't know whether it was the federal
I heard
government
that
involved
too.
or if it was the local police department that handled it. But it's my understanding that that's all classified right
Do
now.
you know
Is
that
my
we have a
understanding.
breakdown of that?
Yeah, Melissa, do you want to jump in? Because I know
I
you did an
don't have it
analysis
in
on
front
it.
of me. I did it like when it first came out, and I didn't know we would talk about this. But yeah,
Yeah.
like what I did with Mindy's case and what I'm going to continue doing, I did it. It was a very rough kind of look at. I didn't do it deep digging, but I have it, and
Ooh,
maybe
good.
we need to dig back into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you
Absolutely.
actually looked at the entity itself that was caught.
Yes,
You can
Yeah.
see it back behind the tractor, and you actually
100%.
had
There
done an
is
analysis of it.
something there. It's not.
Mhm.
I will say it's not nothing. It is something there. You can see the figure moving. I
Can you
ran
describe
it
it
through
at
a
all,
whole
or-
bunch of different. So it was probably 8-9 feet tall. You can't really see like features or anything like that, but it's a shadow like
Yeah, shadowy.
figure.
Mhm.
It does have honestly what I would describe as a traditional gray shape head, but on a very large being. You can see it crouching down and actually looking through the fence.
Yes, I saw
There's
that.
quite a few things you can see. Yeah. And then so I ran it through a bunch of different spectral analyses, and it looked pretty solid, honestly. But I'd have to go back and look at it again. Maybe
Let's
run it
look
through
at that,
actual
Melissa.
real analysis and actually get into it instead of just kind of messing around to see if it was worth looking into.
Well, your messing around with it is what led me to find you, because I saw
That's
that and I'm
true.
like, I called Terry and I said, "My goodness, this girl, she's doing some things. Let's talk to her." So
Yeah,
it'd be
that was
interesting
great.
to get. Maybe we can have Leeza look at it after your analysis and give kind of her
Sure.
thoughts on it from the police perspective.
Yeah,
That might
I
be
would love that
interesting.
actually. We'll have to get
Okay.
back together on here after I pull that up and re-analyze it. That'd be good.
That's a good case. That's a good case.
Yeah, absolutely. Fun to work on too. Let me
Mhm.
ask you, you often speak with filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who has become really a strong voice in pushing the UFO conversation into the mainstream. And how did that connection develop? There you go. There he is. And what can we learn from his approach to sharing UFO information with the public?
Well, I don't talk to Jeremy all the time. He's very busy, but it
Sure.
was funny. I was a fan of his films, and I went to this family wedding, and I couldn't believe my eyes when Jeremy Corbell was at this wedding. He was actually officiating the wedding. He was
Oh my
officiating the
goodness.
How
wedding.
cool.
And I
Sounds like
said, I can't
fun.
believe. So I followed him around all day like a puppy dog and picked his brain. And he was great about it. He's a really great guy. Um, every now and then we reconnect. He's very supportive of the effort here at IUFOB, and he knows all about it.
Yes.
He and George Knapp had recently, I don't know if you've seen on his podcast, Weaponized, which is a great
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
He and George were working with whistleblower Matthew Brown, who dropped some big bombshells in the Immaculate Constellation documents, were a part of last year's congressional efforts. One thing about Jeremy and the way he does things, and he's real clear about this, he does not reveal his sources. I mean, that's
No.
good investigative
Mhm.
journalism.
Right.
You cannot do that. If you
Right.
want to get information and keep your contacts in the Department of Defense and the intel community and the military, you
That's
cannot
right.
share. And he does not. I mean, he'll go to his grave before he reveals the source. And
Good.
that's what it takes. And
Hmm.
um, I
Integrity.
think, yeah, definitely. And I think that style of investigative journalism, the citizen journalism and the citizen astronomers, the citizen-led initiatives like IUFOB, that's going to be the next frontier of disclosure. I hate
Hmm.
to say it, guys. I don't think it's going to be the government. We're going to keep trying there. We're going to keep trying, but I don't know. I think it might come from other different angles. I really do.
Yeah,
Right. Well,
absolutely.
it's so important that we're working together with someone like Corbell being a filmmaker. He has a way of putting that information out to the public. And he's one of the people in the community that I really respect the most because of his approach to sharing the information in a non-sensationalistic way,
Right.
Yes.
putting the facts out there and double checking the facts. So
Oh, yeah.
he's not out there just to sell films. He's out there to put, you can tell he has his heart in it, and
Right.
he's doing this as a act
Yes.
for
Oh,
humanity, and
Right.
that's what we need more of. So
I agree.
organizations like us with the Bureau, with now that we have AI and we have capabilities to infuse that into doing the different types of data analysis and trend analysis, being able to disseminate that kind of information, just overviews, not specifics about anybody in particular. We are never going to reveal witness information unless they want to come forward, but just the general trend analysis, being able to put that into the hands of someone like Corbell, who can say, okay, we've seen these kind of changes, and those are things that avenues he can track down with his
Yes.
people. And it builds. I don't know how much the government is needed in disclosure anymore. They did a service
Grateful.
they did a service by acknowledging, but they did such a darn good job back in like Project Grudge of discrediting the whole topic, that we're seeing that carrying over. We're finally, and I'm here in the heartland and Oklahoma City, so it's still like pulling teeth. Some people still giggle, but it's getting less
Yeah,
and less.
Yeah.
And I'm
it is.
mostly now seeing people pull me aside and go, so I've got something to tell you. I was deeply involved in this aspect of such and such. And so that people are ready to come forward. They don't feel
Yep.
like they're going to be mocked anymore. And that's probably the biggest service that Congress has brought towards the American people, I believe.
Right. Well, this is kind of a rabbit trail, but this is so interesting. Next year, 2026, my husband and I were looking at all the upcoming movies. I guarantee you that 80% of them have alien-based information in them. And this seems to be the thing. And I'm talking from kindergartner age and up,
Wow.
into the baby boomer age. And so many very interesting different types of shows that are coming out. Really, really interesting. A few of them, I said to my husband, that one we're seeing in the theaters. So, it is being talked about. And like you said, Leeza, there is a little bit of the giggle factor still going on, but not so much. Not when every single thing we're doing now seems to relate to this subject. And it's coming in like a flood in 2026. So lots to see at the movies. And you know what they say, usually something will come in on the movies, and then, it'll be the truth hidden through just
Oh,
a
yeah.
myriad of situations, So
Yes.
it's
To
very
hear that
interesting
all the
stuff.
time, that the government perhaps reveals things through films. I think
Right.
Steven Spielberg has one coming out next year
Right.
or the year after that's supposed to
Really?
be a huge
Yeah.
bombshell, UFO film. Yes,
And
with a lot of
also,
witnesses in it.
Sensitization.
yes. And they're saying that these the ones that came out in the 60s were actually incredibly telling, that so much of what they had back then, and they didn't have a clue, or yes, they probably did, but I mean, they actually were showing how we are living today, and some people say, oh, what a coincidence. And I say, there is no such thing as a coincidence. So it was planned. It was, purposeful.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very interesting. So, okay, I'll get off of my.
Well, hold on
little-
to that note, though, Terry. And I'm sorry, Lisa. You
Oh,
see
no,
how it is. We just start chatting. But no,
Yeah.
it makes me think of what Dan Harari is doing with the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And I want to give a
Right.
big shout out to them because
Yay.
Dan has been so great to us and he keeps sending wonderful people our way. And we have a couple of them already scheduled to be on the show. And Dan will be joining us
Yeah.
here in a few weeks. But I think it's important what he's doing on that side because, again, it's the Hollywood involvement in getting the information out and normalizing it. I believe that back in ancient times, it was normalized. And then just here within the last 100 years or so is whenever people started kind of laughing at the UFO phenomena. But most of our ancient history, it's been a normal part of our lives.
Yep.
So I want to back up here, Leeza, because you went to the 2024 congressional hearing
Yes, she did.
as part of the UAP Disclosure Fund efforts. Could you share what role you played there and why that moment was so important for the disclosure movement?
Yeah, that was a really neat day for me, a really unique day for me. So I was invited by the UAP Disclosure Fund to assist in an after party after the congressional hearings were finished. Um, Everybody and anybody was there. I really couldn't believe it. Lou Elizondo was there, of course, because he presented information to Congress that day under oath, where he swore that the United States possesses non-human technology and routinely conducts secret UAP crash retrievals. So he swore to that under oath. That was the same day that retired Admiral Tim Gallaudet spoke in front of Congress. And also Michael Schellenberger, the journalist, presented
Right.
Jeremy's information from his whistleblower, Matthew Brown, which were the Immaculate Constellation documents.
Right.
So all that happened that day. So there was quite a few people there. I saw Ryan Graves there, pilot Ryan Graves, Leslie Kane, of course, who
Yeah.
wrote the New York Times article that we
Right.
keep
Yeah.
mentioning. She was there. I didn't get to speak to her, but I saw her there.
Was
It
Ralph
was
there
really
too?
exciting. I think I saw Ralph, but he was walking out the door, and I can't confirm it was him, but I'm pretty sure it was him because she embraced him, and then he was walking out. So really neat. James Fox was there. Matter of fact, he's a fantastic filmmaker. You
He
guys have
is.
probably seen The Phenomenon. That's a movie that I
Yes.
recommend to everyone. I think for a person who has no knowledge of this topic to get a good overview and really understand what's going on and what has been going on, I recommend that film to everyone. He was
He
really
did an
nice.
outstanding job with it.
Yeah.
Yes,
He is a
yes.
very nice person. I've met him. Mhm.
So that was a great day, and yeah. So that was the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, chaired by Nancy Mason, Glenn Grothman. So
Right. Well, and I know Burchett is very involved in it
Yeah.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Luna, and we have members that are working directly with them. I know Gallaudet had reached out to Dr. Rogers, so we're talking with
great,
members of Congress, and maybe the Bureau will be brought to the
fantastic.
table soon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how
Keep
it
working in
pays
that
out.
direction. Yep.
That's
Keep moving
right.
in
Yeah.
that direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, from your perspective, what is the best way forward for Congress in the disclosure process, and where should their priorities be, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, we've come a long way since, let's say, 20 years ago. I mean, people are testifying in front of Congress about UFOs. Whoever
Yeah.
thought we'd see this
Yeah.
day?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Grush.
It's an amazing
Yeah.
time to be alive, you know?
Yes, it is.
So a lot of progress has been made. We have the National Defense Authorization Act, the public hearings. There's still a lot of resistance in the DoD and the intel communities, though, of course.
Well,
I think
imagine that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Who's hiding everything? Gee, I don't know. So I think public pressure. Let's keep on
Yeah.
the public pressure. The IUFOB is an organization that can make headway here.
Mhm.
So public pressure, keep the momentum up. The public interest is at an all-time high. Terry, you mentioned all the movies coming out. They have
Right.
something to do with UFOs or aliens, and
Mm-hmm.
TV shows. I mean, I think, geez, a high percentage. If it's yeah.
Yeah.
So the public interest is certainly there. Um, but a lot of them aren't getting correct information, or
Right.
they're getting no information, or they don't know where to find information. So now, of course, we have the NARA, and I'm going to refer to my list of acronyms here, guys. But
All
the
right.
NARA is the National Archive and Records Administration.
Right.
So,
Yes.
as you know, the 2024 NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act,
Right.
requires the NARA to establish the UAP records collection. I'm sure you
Mm-hmm.
guys know all this, but I'm just going to say
No,
this.
go for it.
So,
Yeah.
federal agencies are required to turn over all of their UAP records. Now, when the NARA obtains these records, their job is to go through each record. They outlined a process for the agencies to follow so they can ensure compliance of this. Here's how to turn in your stuff. Here's what we're going to do. It's either going to be fully releasable, partially restricted, or fully restricted.
Okay.
I know this past April they released a couple of good things. Do you guys recall that Japan Airlines flight? I think it was over Alaska,
Yes.
where
Oh,
the
yes.
pilot saw something
Right.
that was
Yes.
released.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they
Ah,
released a
Yep.
film, a 1962 film where a UAP is flying parallel to a missile. I haven't seen
Yes.
that one yet, but I heard about it. But
Yeah, I've heard about that.
the Japan flight was an interesting case, I think. So
Yes.
that's
well,
legit.
how
Sure was.
validating for him. I remember, like you were saying, those old shows, Unsolved Mysteries and In Search of. I remember seeing whenever those shows were first talking about the Japan Airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
poor guy went through so much
Jeez.
crap.
Oh my
And
goodness.
now
Yeah.
I just wish he would come forward and be like,
Oh,
told you. He told you
I hope he's.
so.
I hope he is. I hope he is.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. That'd
But
be
I,
nice.
I
I
think.
know you were probably one whenever the Unsolved Mysteries came on. And of course, I'd be sitting there. I remember being a little girl, and as soon as it would go the unexplained, I'm like, oh, let it be UFOs. Let it be UFOs. And how
Loved it.
funny that those shows had such an impact, because we were talking to Sam Sheridan last weekend,
Right.
and she was saying the same thing. So all of us here in Gen X, those shows made such a huge impact. And
Yeah, they
Right.
did. They
They
really
did.
had an effect on us, and I wonder if those shows hadn't been in existence, how would we have found this topic? I guess we would have found it somehow,
I'm
right?
looking at this here. Let me highlight this comment. Robert Stack with
Robert
that
Stack.
serious stare.
Oh, I know. I know. Yeah. That was great. Thank you for
Absolutely.
that.
I always loved his voice. He had a great voice, though.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did. Yeah, he really did. Well, let me ask you, how can organizations like the International UFO Bureau help bridge the gap, in your opinion, between congressional hearings and the wider UFO community?
Well,
That's
first
a
of all,
packed one.
I did want to mention that what we need is more hearings. We have to always keep pushing for
Yes.
more and more hearings,
Mm-hmm.
more and more whistleblowers, like our own
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Greg Rogers, great
Yay.
whistleblower. Whistleblowers like him from the science community, from the
Right.
military side. These are your credible witnesses. These are the people you want at the table speaking for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the IUFOB does play a big role in the disclosure process. I mean, we're going to be like the central hub. We are the central hub, obtaining detailed accounts from people, video, photo, evidence, everything. We can also parse through the cases that are deceitful, that are hoaxes, get rid of those, and you're left with a set of credible
Yeah.
data, good reports. And we can
Mm-hmm.
do a lot with that data, and we can look for patterns, right?
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Keep the anonymity of the witnesses at all times. We
Mm-hmm.
can hopefully we'll be able to submit that directly to a congressional committee. Continue with public outreach, petitioning Congress. I know the IUFOB will work with other partners to further this process. Keep bringing forth our own whistleblowers, educating the public. Right now, this is almost kind of a public education. some people may be watching right now or listening, and they haven't heard of the Japan Airlines case. So maybe they'll go research that on their own, or
Yeah.
I think little things spark interest in people. So keep educating
Sure.
the public about the phenomena in general. And then also when hearings happen, post hearing, we can explain what happened, because sometimes it can be a little confusing, on Capitol Hill, what goes on there. So we can give
Yeah.
that a breakdown to people. Producing content, Melissa, keeping the public informed, keeping the public informed, let the public know that we are here for experiencers and witnesses and to come forward, because we'll listen when others may not. The IUFOB, reach out and share your story with us. We are here for you.
Absolutely. And we mean that. Give us a call, report, get online, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. And if anybody that is tuned in and listening has any questions, please reach out to us. We're very accessible, open for conversations. And if I can't take a call or Mindy can't take one, we'll get you in touch with somebody that can. If you send any questions, or if you'd like to make a report, just go to report.iufob.com, and we'll get back to you. I promise you, with really very well trained and people just like Leeza. I mean, she's a pro. She's also with Connect. If you've had some type of an experience that has been a little much to handle because you just can't wrap your mind around what happened, these interactions with crafts, with extraterrestrials, they're life-changing. They are absolutely traumatizing. And if you can't handle it, you're not alone. There are so many people that just think, oh, I didn't see that, or I didn't experience that. That did not happen. But it did happen, and it can happen, and it probably will happen at some point. I think we're being saturated here. Like I was telling you about these movies coming out, everything seems to be structured around UFOs
Yeah.
and extraterrestrials. And some of
Hmm.
the extraterrestrial beings that they were showing were pretty odd. Okay. So, there's a lot of I would have to say imagination and a lot of that, because they want you to be so fearful of them. And let me just say this about that. If we were really worried about the fear factor, they would have done something to us to confirm that. And they have never. We've been aware of them since the early 1800s, even before that, in the 1500s and 1600s. They were, pictures with UFOs and all this. Nothing has ever happened. So I don't know why we feel like it's a fear factor, other than the fact that we are playing with nuclear powers right now. So that's a little different. We weren't doing that in the 15 and 1600s,
Well, I think
but
for people that are experiencing it directly, I think there's such an ontological shock.
it
If
is.
there's something you don't
Mm.
believe in, and then all of a sudden it's right in front of you,
Yeah.
I can't imagine coming face to face
Yeah.
with another intelligent entity. I remember whenever we lived out in eastern Oklahoma, and we had this big deck with a built-in fireplace that was huge. It hung over the side of a cliff or a mountain there in the foothills of the Ozarks. But there was an animal that came through in our backyard, and I'm like, what
Wow.
is that?
Yeah.
And it looked like a deer, but not really. And of course, I'm like, is that a zebu or something? What the heck is that? Is that a moose?
What is that?
But it almost had almost like zebra stripes down the back of its leg. And before that moment, I didn't know that those kind of animals even existed. And I'm in there trying to explain to my husband, it looked like this, and he ended up actually figuring out what it was. And I guess they're kind of rare, but for some reason it was wandering through the hills of eastern Oklahoma.
What was it? Now you have to tell us. What was
Yeah.
it?
I don't remember. It's been so many years, but I'll have to look it up and I'll tell you some other time. But
Okay.
it was
Okay.
it was a funky little thing, and it makes me think of people that have had encounters where they've come to face with these
Sure.
entities. that
Mhm.
are actually intelligent and have capabilities far beyond what we do,
Right.
especially with like communications, being able to
Exactly.
telepathically
It's all
communicate with you.
telepathic. Right. And,
I
you know,
can't
Mhm.
imagine the overwhelming fear that you would have
right,
until you are absolutely certain it meant you no harm.
Well, think
right,
But
of
like you
the
were saying, do what,
I'm sorry,
Lisa?
just think of the Travis Walton case. It's actually the
right,
50th anniversary this year.
right. That's
Yeah,
right.
that happened in 1975. I think,
That's
Terry,
right.
you know Mr. Walton. I don't know if any of
Yes,
you
I
other
do.
guys know.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
I
well,
only
I
met
know
him
him
briefly,
real
but
well.
yeah.
He's a wonderful, honest, very truthful guy. And the story that he originally told was blown out of proportion. And there was
Yeah.
the Fire in the Sky, movie that came out. But then he went back, retraced all that, and brought truth to light, which I so respect. And that was
Yeah.
difficult because he had to do that. But it was wonderful knowing that the movies portions were all the things that were so horrid and frightening, excuse me, but they actually were healing him. They actually had
Yeah.
killed him and brought him back to life.
Yes.
And that's what really happened. And I will tell you, having seen otherworldly beings, when you see them, there are really no words. It is shock. It is surreal. You don't know how to wrap your mind around it. You don't know where to file that in your head. And everything about what you see as normal becomes, it's no longer normal. It's like, what is that? And they control you. Let me just say that they do have a way of controlling you so that you don't run or you don't scream or start acting up. And even Travis found that out. And
Mhm.
he was treated very well, actually. So,
Yeah.
I have one of his movies here, which I just popped in the other day that he had signed
Actually, I
for
have
me.
his deal back here
Yeah,
hanging on my wall.
yeah,
That's his
yeah,
poster.
yeah.
He signed it to the Totfest family. The family that
Oh,
gets abducted together stays together.
yeah, that
So,
sounds like him.
so Lisa, what was one of the main things that stuck with you after going and meeting him and
Yeah,
hearing his presentation?
Afterwards, I went up to him and I had asked him a couple of questions, and because he wasn't real clear in his presentation about what the beings looked like, and he shared with me that they looked like the typical grays at first. They
mhm.
were the grays, and then he saw what appeared to be perhaps a regular man or maybe a Nordic.
Nordics.
However, is it possible that they can overlay images in our mind and, make us see
The
whatever they
screen
want to
memories.
see? Yes, because
Mhm.
there have been so many cases. One is coming to mind now. I read it in a book, and I think it had to do with somebody that had visited Skinwalker Ranch. It was the wife of an investigator there, I want to say. She was in her kitchen at night after having gone there, and she was washing dishes. Maybe you guys know this story, and she looked out the window, and in her backyard was what appeared to be a cartoon wolf, with the long snout
Oh,
standing up
yeah.
with two
Yes.
legs leaning up against a tree. So that is such an absurd and bizarre image for an
Mhm.
adult to see and have to process that, like you
Right.
said, Terry, she didn't know where to file that.
You
So
don't know what
she
to do with
just
it.
like, am I
Mhm,
seeing things? I'm obviously
mhm,
seeing things. But this is the
mhm,
phenomenon. But
mhm.
speaking of, so Mr. Walton said that he felt like on some level he had developed kind of a connection to these beings who had he definitely believes that they saved his life.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
years and years later, he had a
Mhm.
son, a small child. I'm guessing like toddler or in that stage, 2, 3 maybe. And everyone was asleep in the house, middle of the night. He hears, I think, a voice, a light awoke him. He felt this intense need, go down the hall, check on your son, check on your son. His son was fine. There's nothing wrong with his son, but he went down the hallway and his son had stopped breathing, had stopped
Oh,
breathing.
no.
And he was able to
Wow.
pick him up and revive him only because the
Hmm.
phenomenon, the visitors had awoken him. So are they
Wow.
bad guys? I mean, are there many different some bad, some good, some neutral. These aren't bad guys. These weren't bad
No.
guys. So
I imagine they're like humans. Any race would be like humans. Some of them are really good, and some of them
yeah,
deserve to be in prison the rest of their life. You
yeah,
know?
yes.
Yeah, some people say that they are very negative. I've never experienced anything negative. It's always been very good. And I believe even Travis had said that, at first he, oh, it was negative. And then he said, no, actually, they saved my life. And I do think two different types can be together, because I had a tall white with grays. And they were distinctively very different, but in the exact same room with me. So I think different types do interact. And that's something we're looking into. And we hope at IUFOB to bring some facts and some truth. And we have some DNA that we can talk about in the future.
Yeah.
And lots of very interesting things. Kathy Martin is coming on in a few weeks, and we'll have her to talk about the different DNA that she has now from Betty and Barney Hill. So lots going on in the future here.
Oh my.
Looks
Yes.
like
Yeah.
we're coming to a close here with our show.
Yeah.
I think we want to prompt the audience with a question. Do you think that first responders and law enforcement perspectives bring a new level of credibility to UFO investigations? So should we go ahead and answer that in the comments?
Yeah, and we'll be watching.
Yeah.
And Leeza, thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you,
We're gonna have to
ladies.
bring you
Yes.
back.
Thank you for
You are-
having me. It's been
I
great.
am enjoying getting to know you. You are just
Yes.
incredible. So
Same
thank
here,
you, thank you,
guys.
thank you.
Love
Thank you
your
very
shirt. Great merch.
So as always, thank you guys for joining us on the Bureau. Visit internationalUFObureau.com and follow us on social media to stay connected. Until next time, stay curious, stay courageous, and never stop demanding the truth.
Thank you for joining us today on The Bureau. For exclusive content, follow the International UFO Bureau on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. From yesterday's sightings to tomorrow's revelations, be sure to tune in next time right here only on KGRA, Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern.